Hi there, I'm Julie Tam, managing broker of LYN Realty in Houston, and thank you for watching Smarter Real Estate Weekly on Wednesdays. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of a real estate transaction, a sale that took us from a jacuzzi tub to this fruit basket. Okay, the lesson learned here is that in a real estate transaction, often people think about two sides, opposing sides, buyer versus seller. But really, you have the same goal. It's to get to the closing table. Seller wants to sell the home, buyer wants to buy the home. Let's make it happen. And if everybody can be happy or as close to being happy as possible with each side giving a little, taking a little, then that's the win-win that we're looking for. And so this story is an example of how I created a win-win when a pretty big problem, a several $1,000 problem came up toward the end of the transaction when we were this close to closing, and then it resulted in this lovely fruit basket, okay? It's going to sound like I'm tooting my own horn. Well, because I am. I was the one who found the solution, but this is great for you to know if you are going into a real estate transaction, because most real estate transactions are more complicated and have more issues than what's portrayed on those TV shows where people go look at homes, they make an offer, and it's automatically accepted and they get to closing with no problem, okay? All right, so first of all, I'm gonna show you this home. This is the owner's bath, or the primary bath in this gorgeous home that I had listed for sale. And this is the jacuzzi tub in question. So we have a buyer who's gone under contract at an agreed upon price and terms. And during the course of the inspections, the jacuzzi tub leaked when the inspector turned on the water to test it. Now, I will zoom in so you can see in this next photo that the original stickers from the manufacturer are still on the tub. The seller said they never used this tub, okay? They're just not, they don't bathe in tubs. Some people just don't use bathtubs. Well, unfortunately with this leak, the seller was looking to get it repaired. Got estimates from multiple contractors, and when they came out and looked at it, they determined that really the best course of action would be to replace the tub. So the sellers went with that. Well, that would cost over $7,000. Well, it's all good. The sellers agree, right? The buyer's responsibility in a real estate contract like this is supposed to, or the buyer's responsibility, I should say, is for their agent to send over a repair amendment where it outlines the repairs agreed to. She did. However, the language was either faulty or incorrect or promised repairs that the seller did not agree to. There were a few other, minor repairs that the seller agreed to do. Well, the sellers being people that are upstanding, even though the buyer missed the deadline to submit that repair amendment correct, a correct version of it, the sellers still were going to go ahead and hold fast and keep their promise to make the repairs and the tub replacement that they said they would do, even though there's not an official amendment saying so. Now, as you may know, there's something called the option period. That is a period of time during the beginning of the contract that the buyer can back out of the contract for any reason and get their earnest money back that they paid. The earnest money in this case was a few $1,000s. I don't want to give too specific of details because obviously this is a real transaction. So the option period passed without an amendment, which really should have happened during the amendment. But the buyer still had some more contingencies because they had a loan, and so there's some financing contingencies and things like that. Well, all those contingencies one by one expired, and we are just a few days away from closing. Unfortunately, the jacuzzi tub, the new one that got delivered, ended up being the wrong size. The contractor order from the company, this company sent the wrong size. So we're in a bit of a pickle. What do we do? So I inform, both sides, this is what's going on, or the seller already knows. I inform the buyer side, and the buyer wants to delay closing until the new replacement tub of the correct size gets delivered and installed, which could take up to about 2 weeks or even longer if another snag happens. And the seller did not want to delay closing any further. Seller has the upper hand in this case because the seller did not promise any repairs in writing in an amendment as part of a contract, which is needed if you want those repairs to get done as the buyer. And so the buyer really did not have any recourse. They had passed all of their contingencies in order to be able to back out and get their earnest money back. So at this point, if the buyer were to back out of the contract, he would lose his earnest money, which really wouldn't be good for him. And he wants the house. So the sellers, they're kind of upset at this point that the buyers are, trying to demand more. And I wanted to work out a solution that could work for everyone. So the sellers wanted to be able to, so first of all, let's back up for a second. The sellers had paid about 50% to the contractor of the total balance as a down payment for the work. And then once the contractor would finish the tub installation, the seller would pay off the rest. And so our idea was, okay, maybe the seller can credit the buyer at closing for that amount, the remaining 50%, and then the buyer could pay the contractor after the tub got installed. But the sellers and I were a little bit uneasy about that. We wanted to do right by the contractor in case the buyer did not go through with the tub replacement with this contractor but decided to go off on his own or whatever idea. We don't know, right? Unless it's in writing in a contract, you just cannot expect anything. And so when the two sides were kind of at an impasse, I came up with the idea that, what if the sellers went ahead and credited the buyers at closing that amount, but have the title company hold on to that money in escrow until after closing, until after the tub is installed, and we have an escrow agreement so that the title company can then release the money directly to the contractor and pay the contractor directly. That would protect the contractor. That would give the buyers the tub that they wanted installed, because the buyer would have to sign off on the release of those funds to the contractor only after the tub installation was complete and done correctly. Now the seller is pleased because they've done right by the contractor. They've released the remaining funds, and everybody's happy. We can close on time. And so that's what I made happen. It took a lot of back and forth, but in the end, everybody in the transaction, both agents and buyer and sellers, agreed that we had a win-win situation that everyone was happy with. So the kind buyer's agent sent me this fruit basket. This is the first time, I think, in my memory that I've ever received a gift from the agent on the other side, and especially a gift this nice. So I do appreciate it. And she wrote a note: "Thank you for getting us through the finish line. I appreciate your diligence and patience with me. Congrats on the close, and thank you for everything." So, she dropped the ball during this transaction that hurt her buyer. I could have really potentially hurt the buyer a lot, but because my sellers are people of integrity and they followed through with their promise, even though the promise wasn't part of an amendment, they agreed to replace the tub, and they did. And in the end, even though we hit a snag, the sellers provided the buyer with the money that they needed to make sure the job would get done. And the good news is the tub actually arrived a lot earlier than expected, a whole week earlier. And so the tub installation actually is happening as I'm shooting this video, and everybody should be happy and dandy in the end. All right, if you are looking for a real estate professional, I almost said professor, I could be a professor, I suppose, to walk you through potentially issue fraught, problematic transactions, to have someone on your side to create a win-win scenario. Oh, and by the way, this buyer told the title company, according to the title company's escrow agent, that, hey, the sellers have a really good agent on their side. So anyway, if you want me on your side, you know where to find me. Send me a message or put a comment down there on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook. And I hope you will like and subscribe so that you can get valuable real estate education to help you conduct smarter real estate wherever you are. But specifically in Texas are the laws that we adhere to, and that the ones that I am talking about. And I'm gonna go grab some lunch now because I'm really hungry, and that's why I'm stumbling on a few of my words here and there. But I thank you for watching Smarter Real Estate Weekly on Wednesdays. Have a great week.